Major victory for 2/3 of the American workforce yesterday at the U.S. Supreme Court. Your ACLJ representing the Heritage Foundation.
The government never had the authority. This was what we argued, that the Occupational Safety and Health Administration did not have the statutory authority to do this, and that they overreached by doing it. And 6 justices, Andy, of the Supreme Court agreed with us.
We focused on what did the Congress give in terms of authority to OSHA, and the Supreme Court found that it did not give it authority to do anything other than occupational hazards and workplace safety. It's not a public health arm.
This was a victory for 2/3, nearly 100 million American workers and their employers who won't have to be in this bizarre employer-employee relationship, which I'll tell you, folks, was becoming very bizarre.
We saw a massive federal overreach here, and we saw the United States Supreme Court reject that. That's good news, not just on this issue of COVID, but good news on so many fronts. And finally now, employers, too, have the freedom to make good decisions for their own workplace. I ran a small company for 7 or 8 years back in South Central Kansas. I want to be able to make good decisions for the health, for the safety, for the shareholders, for my team, for my customers, everybody involved. And the federal government had stepped in and taken that away from these small business owners. And yesterday, the Supreme Court restored that balance.
As the court said, you cannot use a blunt instrument approach to every employee. You can't treat the lifeguards the same as the meat packers. You don't treat medical staff the same way you treat people who work in a production studio. And so the court, and they understood too, this idea that if the federal government, and the Gorsuch concurrence went into this further, federal government started having this power, we'd have emergency after emergency.
Oh, no,
they would never give up. They'd always come up with an emergency to issue a mandate that they didn't have to go through the normal process.
It was so outside the norm of what is in constitutional principles and statutory construction. It was way out of line.
The Heritage Foundation came to us. They were interested in filing the challenge. It was the first time the Heritage Foundation ever went to federal court as the actual petitioner. They had filed a couple of amicus briefs before, but they had never been represented before federal court. That just wasn't something they had done before, and they decided this was important. This was so important that they wanted to do so, and they chose the American Center for Law and Justice to represent them.
You and I were texted last night. This was a great win. What's so interesting to me, and I'm so thankful, is that it's exactly what we argued. It wasn't getting into the science of this vaccine or not this vaccine. It got into the law and to an issue that has been a huge concern for Heritage really since your founding, and that was the whole separation of powers and states' authority in these kind of matters.
This is exactly what you predicted, that the merits of a number of cases that focused on separation of powers, on the proper role of government, rather than getting into the weeds of the science, because we know it's too premature in the history of this disease to figure that out, was the right way to go. And so we're just ecstatic here at the Heritage Foundation, not just because we and many others, any employer with over 100 employees, have won these cases. We're ecstatic because it is a line in the sand against this regime that they better not cross again.
They noted it wasn't just the states. It wasn't just big companies. It was the small businesses, and they actually said, and nonprofit organizations. That basically the entire private employment world together stood up and said no.
We were very confident, given your representation, we were going to win this case. But let me be clear. When it comes to putting government back in the box, it is a series of battles. We have won one battle,
right,
but we've not won the political and policy war. And just know, the Heritage Foundation, all of us here, stand at the ready for the next battle, not just for us and that very special relationship that I have with my colleagues here as their employer, but for all Americans. And I don't even care if they're left of center and disagree with us. We want to protect their rights from an overreaching government this day and every day.
Everybody lined up here to say, in the private employment world and all the different kinds of private employers, that this was wrong, that OSHA did not have the statutory authority. This was not a workplace danger. And as the court worked through, this is a danger that you face just like any other air pollution or crime. It's a danger you face by being a human being.